a while since I made a little video on this, so Dirty Diesel, which is what I'm now naming the truck, is getting herself a Nv45, a fresh Nv4500, because the one I got in it is just clapped. It's making all kinds of noise and clunking and stuff. And I added 20 degrees of timing and 4K governor, 4K governor springs. So she's getting a lot more power now. And I started slipping the clutch, which I knew I was gonna do. It's just got a single clutch in it, single disc, stock clutch in it, which survives surprisingly long. But it's time for an upgrade, so we bought ourselves a dual disc Southbend clutch off Marketplace for $400 and the hardware package for $150 to put it all together, because the guy that sold it to me didn't have all that. The dual disc had like 300 miles before a previous owner blew up his truck, so he was just parting it out. But anyways, today I'm going to show you how to pull that transmission out and put a new one in, as well as replace the clutch. So today right now we're going to pick up a transmission jack from, it's about 30 minutes away. I go pick that up, pull the truck into the shop, and start pulling the trans out. Shouldn't be too hard, but I'll just walk you guys through what all is involved. Alright, so the first step of this transmission is to take out those screws all the way around the boot. So we're going to take, I think there's 6 of them out. We're going to take all 6 of them out. Alright, so under there are I can see 2 bolts. And they are, what is that, 7/16? No, it's probably a 10 mil. Let's say 10 mil. So 12 millimeter would work. Alright, so then the shifter, all you gotta do is pull up on it, and it actually pops off of that. Pretty easy. You might have to give it a pretty serious tug, but it just pops right off of that. Alrighty, now we're on the underside of the truck. First thing we gotta do, I think there's 4 10 millimeter bolts, and then 4 drop shackle bolts. Not drop shackle, whatever this is, carrier bearing bolts. And the transmission brace will have to come out. It's 4 bolts on either side. And this exhaust will unbolt here. I've already unbolted it in the front. It's a full 5-inch. Did a while ago. So we're gonna unbolt that. And that'll get that out of the way. And there's 2 transmission cross member bolts that go into this. Ideally, you want to replace this every time, because those are junk. We'll actually go ahead and disconnect this while we're here. It's a speed sensor, it doesn't even work, so I'm not sure what the point of that is. We got a reverse sensor up there somewhere too, and then the slave cylinder. So let's get all that disconnected. Alright, so this is actually an 8 millimeter bolt on the drive shaft. So there's 4 of them, obviously on the U-joint. And then we'll disconnect that carrier bearing next. Alright, got the drive shaft out. The easiest way to do that is just pull it back with your leg supporting it. That's what I found. But there's 4 bolts for that carrier bearing. They are 5/8 top and bottom, so you just stick a wrench in the top and it drops right down. Pretty simple. Alright, we got the slave cylinder disconnected. As you can see up there, there's 2 bolts. They're both, I believe, a 1/2 inch. Well, I can't read this. 1/2 inch or 13 millimeter. That goes into that clutch fork, I guess. And then there is these 2 transmission mount bolts. And I think I'm just going to disconnect here this to start out with, and then pull that out. All right, well, 30 minutes later, we got that cross member out. You have to use a 1/2 inch impact unless you use like heat to get them damn 4 bolts out. But we got them out. Next is those 2 bolts, that big one there, and then we already got one out. It's a 3/4 inch bolt. And I think there's 4. Yeah, there's 4 on this. 2 on this side, 2 on that side. And we managed to get it out with a 3/8 brushless. We already got the jack in place. You got to have the transmission jack jacked up. As you can see, like I was saying before, these transmission mounts are kind of junky. But you got to have the jack jacked up. I use this Harbor Freight one. I'm going to put that strap around it. That way it doesn't fall off the jack. But we're going to take those bolts out and slide this thing back. All right, so I feel like I skipped like half the freaking steps, which I really did. I think I left off with pulling, or I was telling you I was going to pull those 4 bolts out. All right, so I'm just editing this up, and it doesn't really make perfect sense. If I was just imagining myself like watching this as you guys. So I basically, what I did was I didn't pull the transmission out with the bell housing. That's what I thought going into it, was I'd have to pull the transmission with the bell housing. Maybe everyone knows that, or maybe you don't. But I didn't know that. So what you can do is actually remove the main part of the transmission from the bell housing using those 4 big bolts, the 3/4 inch bolts, and then just pull the transmission back, and the input shaft will slide out of the clutch and through that shifter fork, which you'll see in there later, in the throw-out bearing. It'll all slide out through there, through a hole in the bell housing, and then you can just pull it back, lower it down. The one tricky part I found was the shifter at the top. The little stub, it sticks up about that far into the cab. I found it was a little tricky with pulling that down. I almost took a sawzall to the floor, but thank God I didn't. I just tapped it with a hammer just enough to get it down. If you're a little more skilled than me, which you probably are, you can get it out no problem. And also drain the transmission before you go any further. Drain the transmission fluid. You're anyways going to have to do it. And it's just worth replacing anyways. And then just lower it down, because when you tilt the transmission down, it'll all gush out where the drive shaft comes out. A lot of people overfill the transmissions too, so if you overfill them, you might want to drain it before you pull the drive shaft out. But yeah, this clip's getting too long, so continue. Well, I got them out. I also got the transmission and the clutch and the bell housing out, so I skipped a lot of steps. But the bell housing bolts, as you can see, I think they use a 9/16, so I don't know why I haven't got a 14. Got this one jammed in a damn 14. But they use a 9/16, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 bell housing bolts. Once you get those out, then you're going to take off the clutch pressure plate with those little forks. Those have these. I believe they are, well, let me see. They're a 3/8 bolt if it's the stock clutch. And then you take that clutch apart, take the clutch fork out, and then on the bell housing, or not on the bell housing, the flywheel, that's what bolts to this. There's 3, 6, 8. The newer style come with 10, I think, but 8, and they are a 18 mil. So I'm reusing all new hardware. I'm not reusing any of this because it's all torque to spec. So I'm gonna go ahead and tear into the pack. And then the way you install the flywheel is you go around in a star pattern, doing first 40, then 70, then 110 foot-pounds or 101. I'll put the right number here when I'm editing. But unless you got ARP hardware, then you refer to the specifications on that. But yeah, so let's get started on that. All right, so we've got all 8 bolts started. You should be able to turn them by hand. One's a little stiff. You should be able to turn each one by hand. Make sure you can. And then just pull them in slowly with an impact. Or if you want to be extra careful, you can use a socket on a wrench. But I'm just going to pull them in a star pattern. And like I said, we're going to start out with 40 foot-pounds. Alrighty, so I'm wrapping up the video. I'm going to edit this part up and have it up tonight. But tomorrow we're going to put the transmission back in. I was going to pick up the transmission tonight, but one thing led to another, and the transmission guy who's building it said he'd probably only be in tomorrow or be available tomorrow, which is fine. So we'll go, it's a 2-hour drive. Drop off the old transmission, pick up the new one, and then I got everything prepped except for the bell. I just have to bolt the bell housing up and put the clutch fork in, which is easy. But everything else is ready for tomorrow. And then we'll slap the transmission on the jack, and the hardest part will be lining it up, I think. I think that's going to be the hardest part. But as long as we can do that, we should be good. I'm confident in every other part of it so far. So, with that being said, this wraps up this video, and then tomorrow I'll have the rest of the video up, but I'm going to start editing this part tonight. And if you like this, make sure you subscribe.